He coached football for 20 years. I'm a big puss. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I became the head coach in 1972. I was the third and the last of the varsity boys coaches FAHS was ever to have. 1995 was to be my 24th and last season. In fact, our school closed in 1995. The US had moved out and the Germans had moved into our building. As of the 18th of May, nevertheless, we played our last game, May 25th. In the tournament in Augsburg, we engaged the Eagles of Nuremberg, another school which had closed. We won our league championship, and as there was no school to present the trophy to, I kept it. It's on the wall in my room, so maybe we can salvage that for your trailer. Our letter presenting ceremony was held under a tree in a park, and when we arrived at Rhein-Main Air Force Base at midnight, I told the kids to keep their uniforms and passed out the soccer balls. So he coached 24 years of soccer. He enjoyed football, but he loved coaching soccer. So I wanted to share a couple more things. When I have two girls. Before the birth of my first daughter, my mother called me and she said, "Your dad's in the hospital. Looks like he's got kidney cancer. I want you up here." So my sister and I, we both jumped in a plane, flew up to Portland, where the doctors removed one kidney, and then it turned out the function of his other kidney was compromised, and so he basically lived with stage 4 renal failure for the rest of his life. My daughter's she's going to be 14 next month. So for the next 12 and a half years, every 6 months he would go in, get a full checkup, and for 12 and a half years, with one scare, he dodged the bullet. But when he went in for his checkup last January, the doctors, they shared some tough news with him. They said, looks like things have started to get a little worse, and the cancer's spreading, and we're gonna try to manage it more aggressively. So he did, but cancer sucks. We all know that. So last April, he came to the Hall of Fame event. He had a lot of fun. May, he made it down to San Diego and visited with his grandkids, my wife and myself. Then they went off to Germany. And while I was in Germany, things really started to get quite a bit harder for him. So he came back. Sylvia went out and visited with him. He was in the hospital for about a week. He came out for about a week. I went up there to see how he was doing. Got there on the Thursday. And the following Monday, he passed away. June 15th, whatever day that was. While I was in the hospital with him, we actually got to spend quite a bit of time together. The World Cup had started, so we actually watched quite a bit of soccer together, which was a good thing. But the one thing he really, really wanted to convey to me was his Hall of Fame notes to make sure that I got them to Carlos so that Carlos would have all the information that he could possibly share at that time. So So on June 14th, sitting in his hospital room, thinking, all right, this is what you want to talk about, this is what we're going to talk about. I took dictation on all the people that he had not yet talked about or had partially talked about with Carlos for the Frankfurt American High School Hall of Fame. Two gentlemen on this list. I do want to preview one thing quickly because it's kind of funny. Roger Marino, there's some stats here that I'll be happy to share with you later. Carl Covage, same thing. The only personal note on any of the players that my dad shared with me was on Carl Covage, and I'm going to share it right now. He said, oh yeah, oh I remember that guy. He goes, yeah. He said, I remember I told him, I said, if I had 11 guys like you, I would never lose a game. And he said, Carl would write back to him and said, yeah, I know. So, it's funny, cracked a smile. So, you know, all in all, cancer sucks, but his wife was there, her mother. Sylvia was there, his brother, or one of his brothers was there, and I was there. Obviously wouldn't trade that experience for anything. So, I share that for two reasons. One is I wanted you guys to know how wonderful he thought the efforts that you guys put together were on this Hall of Fame. It became very clear to me. I think it was. Anyway. And the other thing is, I'm not much of a metaphysical guy. I don't try to see the hand of God out there. You know, neither was my dad. But the day after he passed, early in the morning, I just didn't know what to do. So I thought, you know, I need to go out, I need to go for a run, I need to clear my head. So got up, went out for a run, and I just kind of started running and found these train trestles, and I ended up following these train trestles, and I had no idea where I was going, I didn't really care. Okay? Now this is in Portland, Oregon, and I'd lived in Portland, Oregon, or I'd lived in Oregon, in Corvallis for 5 years. And, you know, I've also been up to Juneau. When I went up to Juneau, bald eagles are like ravens up there. I mean, you just see them everywhere, right? But the 5 years that I lived in Oregon, I'd never seen an eagle. I think there was eagles in Oregon, and wouldn't have believed it if somebody would have told me. But I remember I was running, and I come across these train trestles, and they opened up onto this glade. It was a big, big pond. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. In fact, it was such a cool experience that I actually stopped. Dead quiet, nothing around. Very cool, crisp, foggy, Oregon morning. And just absolutely dead quiet, nothing around. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then all of a sudden, from the opposite side, it's a true story, of this glade, a bald eagle flies 30 feet over my head to its roost and lands there. Honestly, one of the most incredible experiences of my life. So, you know, even though my dad can't be with us anymore, obviously he's still with us. in our hearts. And he will be missed. Thank you.
The waterfalls keep coming. Well, I just want to say thank you to Carlos and Dennis and everyone that helped organize this. All of you meant a lot to my dad. He believed in this, and like Stephen was saying, the day he died, passed, I went in early that morning to the hospital to hang out with him, just talk, small talk. And then he's like, okay, Sylvia, I have some notes for you. Like, out of the blue, like he said. So I got out my notebook and said, remind your brother that I have some notes for him to give to Carlos about the Hall of Fame. This was like, out of the blue, he just like, okay, so I had to make sure that I tell Stephen that he has to make sure that these notes get to Carlos about his nominees for the Hall of Fame. So even the day he passed, that was still in his mind. He wanted you to know, so who he wanted. But I'll try not to keep it somber. I'm going to try to move on and move to the Sports Hall of Fame. I'd like to congratulate everybody that was nominated today, past and future. I know this is a big deal, and my dad supported it, and he really loved this. And the Eagles, yeah, even on his grave, he has an eagle. So, and his colors were black and gold. So part of why we're here today is to honor my father, who passed away of cancer. And you may remember him as a football coach, but his deep passion was soccer. He loved soccer, and like Stephen said, we watched the World Cup in the hospital. Unfortunately, he never made it to the Germany game, which happened afterwards. But many of you may not know, my dad taught at Wheeler's Air Force Base in Africa, and he was also a tennis coach for 1 year. So in that, he also loved tennis, and he instilled that in me. I love tennis. So, and we also watched the French Open, Wimbledon, all that in the past. So that was going on around the same time also. We were watching the French Open. And for me, he was an awesome dad. He was the kind of dad that every girl wished she had. He was just a great role model. He never scorned, never yelled. He just kept his cool and his calm. And so those are kind of what I grew up with, just a really great role model. And my experiences as my dad as a coach pretty much only spans through the 70s and 80s, because I graduated in 87 from the high school, and so he coached the end of the 60s through the 90s, and I left in 87. But I do remember that some of the dorm football players sometimes would stay at our house because they couldn't go home for the weekend. They had to get up early to go with my dad to the football field. And so I always thought, oh, this is neat, some big guys in our house tonight. I'm like some little 5-year-old girl, and I see this big jock staying at our house. And then my dad always made pancakes. So one of the memories that came later with one of his football players, my dad made this big stack of pancakes, and he pretty much devoured all of them. So, but that was kind of his tradition. And many of you may not have known my dad, but if I had to describe my dad to you, I would say he was a gentleman's coach. He was a fair, honest, calm man who commanded authority, and he was very knowledgeable and had competence and was well respected not only as a coach, but as a man and as a father. For you that do know him, you know what I'm talking about. He was just a great person and a great friend. So I just want to say thank you for coming and for this tribute to my father. He was the best father, the great coach, and a wonderful man, and that he was. So thanks for coming and for
would like to induct several people into the Hall of Fame that Lynn had nominated. The first one is Roger Marino, class of '74. I won't read what's already in the program about Roger. He was definitely a contributor both in the soccer field and on the football field. Roger, would you please come up here?
It's been a while since I've stood in front of an audience, captive audience at that, and I prepared a few notes. I'd like to go over those. Coach Hay. The Hall of Fame coach with a code, not just for the game, but also for life. The man who maintains strict standards with a heart of compassion. If you messed up on his watch, you would suffer the consequences. As for the heart of compassion, he understood the magnitude of a certain senior's year by allowing said senior to be part of the team's picture, even though the senior was not allowed to be in uniform. For that, I am forever grateful and was able to pay it forward during my military career and in life with the lessons Coach Haight had taught me on and off the field. On a side note, I would like to thank Hall of Fame coach Donald Draculich for the foresight to bring a soccer-style kicker to the UDESIA football program that taught me a football at the end of my junior year, telling me to practice kicking it over the summer. Thank you, Coach Draculich. Thank you.
Larry, could you make your way up here? Larry Weekly. The second person, soccer and football person that Lynn had nominated was Carl Cubbage, and I can remember working with Carl. And Carl tells me that I was responsible for him passing social studies or his U.S. history requirement. That I was able to take care of that. So Carl, why don't you come up here, and while you're coming up here, Larry has a little story to tell about you.
Hello, Larry.
Yeah. Carl Cubbage is a brother. Without Carl, some of the things I was able to achieve, I wouldn't be able to do it. He always had my back. There were times when K-Town sucks. We played against K-Town. We didn't have the 13 to 12 score, but we had the little scores, 4 3s, 4 1s, 4 2s, that kind of thing. And one year, they had K-Town did, they had a lurch of a guy that was in the goal. I mean, big guy. He's probably about this high, I mean, this tall from the crossbar. And I told Carl, I said, you know, we got this free kick going on right here. And I said, why don't you go over there and put on one of your wrestling moves, because Carl's an excellent wrestler, and see if you can't stop this guy from stopping this ball I'm about to try to kick in. Well, it wasn't just the goalkeeper, there was another guy too that was pretty big also. And Carl took on 2 of them. Okay, this is Carl, still the same height from high school. He's taking on 2 guys that are at least 6 foot, 6'5". And he put on a move on those guys, and he opened a hole, okay, where you can drive a truck through it. And I put that ball exactly where Carl pushed those guys out of the way, and we beat K-Town 4-3. Yeah. K-Town scored. And that year we went on to be the co-European championships that year, and this was a 76-77 year. And without Carl, with his dedication, and my parents always went to every game that we had, and my dad also pretty much said what Coach Haight always said, I wish there was at least 10 more Carl Coverages out there, because Carl was Charlie Hustle. And my dad loved some guy who went out there and hustled and busted it every time he got out there and played ball. Greatest left foot you ever seen. He passed things to me where I was able to score. Like I said, a lot of times, if it wasn't Carl, I wasn't scoring. And Carl always had my back. And he will forever be a brother. Thank you.
If you'll indulge me, I know Coach Haight is watching, so I got to put the jacket on. I want to see the show that kind of fits still. So. I can't button it anymore because I was 132 pounds of wrestling line practicing, but it still kind of fits. Yeah, here we go. You know, I thought I was going to tell you a unique story tonight, but all the stories I heard was my story. The experiences that you had with your coaches is what I had with mine. Coach Haight, Coach Haley, they taught me life lessons on the field, and like Roger said, in life. And I'm a better man for that. I always had fond memories, and to think that Coach thought of me in his last days just bust me up. And I love you, Coach Haight. I miss you, and the tribute you gave to your dad, just touching. I lost my mom in 2008 to stage 4 lung cancer. 45 days after she was diagnosed, she was gone. I had to administer the morphine, you know, to the last day, so I know what you're talking about when you lose somebody who's near and dear to you. But a lot of people I love. I want to thank Carlos and the board. This is just a fantastic organization, and I want to be here every year for the rest of my life because, frankly, it's always in my heart. It's made me the person that I am, and I want to thank you. If I could have Coach, Larry, Deborah Green, who cheerleaded in '76, one of my best friends, and what other teammate do we have here? Jerry Smith. If you could meet me over there so I can get a photo with you, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
And I guess the next person up here is Coach Charles Coach. So you can take it away, Charlie.
Stefan and Sylvia, I too have to add that as a parent, as a friend of your father's, as a person whom I respected very, very much, I cannot tell you how powerful the tribute you just paid to your dad in demonstrating your love, your respect, and your admiration for the great American. Thank you for sharing that with us. It is very, very powerful. For those of you that don't know, if you write down this acronym, AOSHS, if you type that acronym into a search engine, you will come up to a site called the American Overseas Historical Society. It serves as the repository for all of the memorabilia, all of the mementos, all of the trophies, all of the yearbooks, all of the written history of a Department of Defense dependent school. It's in a museum that sits in Wichita, Kansas, and it is the only repository that is authorized to serve as a museum for the overseas school systems. Now, it doesn't just include the Department of Defense schools, it includes international schools as well. I've been a big advocate for what's now in its 4th year as a Frankfurt American High School sports assembly. But look around at the age of the attendees. We span over 50 years of history. Our world gets smaller and smaller every year. I don't know how closely you follow the military environment in our country today, but as recently as 2 months ago, something that I've never seen in my career as a DoD educator, the Department of Defense made the sudden decision to close many schools in Ansbach, England. Teachers, students, families had to pick up and get ready to relocate in a matter of 60 days. That's how small this world we grew up in is becoming every year. So there's going to be a point where it's going to be hard to maintain what we had and what we have today. So one of your missions as a honoree is to, by word of mouth, through email, through your personal associations with anyone and everyone that has some connectivity to an overseas school, to do whatever you can to maintain a legacy. To maintain a legacy that will eventually evaporate. Because we may not have an overseas school system very much longer. I encourage you to do that. I'm fortunate in the fact that I have had the opportunity to coach in several high schools in Europe and have had the opportunity to work in Japan and Korea and in the domestic program as well. So I do whatever I can do on a daily basis to ensure that we're doing everything we can do to maintain this rich, luminary history that has evolved from the end of World War II to what we have perpetuating today. So again, I encourage you, and I encourage my colleagues from the years that I was at Frankfurt, from 1989 to 1995. We have a lot of inductees from those years, and unfortunately, they've never been here. And that's on us. We see these folks, we talk to these folks, we write to these folks, and we got to do everything we can to get them engaged in what I think is just a great opportunity. As far as I know, Carlos, Tommy, and I are the only ones that have been to all 4 of these events since they started, and it gets bigger and better every year. So I say that to you.